Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is reality. We take it for granted that we live in reality and that we have some kind of bead on it. And we get to challenge those ideas this morning and explore maybe a little bit more deeply what the nature of reality might be. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Before we get started with our explorations of reality, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, your molecules, your electrons, creating this brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together, feel all that friction, temperature, texture, pressure, all the tingling and tickling when you stop, all those sensations, and allow them to bring you present to this remarkable physical form right here, right now, that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, Rosalind, you've got to jump on the conversation already. Rosalind says reality in terms of what's true. Well, we exist as though we live in the real world, and like that we know what the nature of the world is. That we interact with the material things in our world as if they're solid, and we interact with the laws of physics, and we have certain collectively agreed upon experiences and interpretations. And the question is, what's really there? We might admonish ourselves or others to get real, to live in the real world. But the question is, does reality exist outside of consciousness? Like what is it that we are experiencing? What are we experiencing? The essence of what's actually there, or are we experiencing our interpretations of what's there? And that's maybe a leading question, because the truth is, and I think it's pretty much an indisputable truth, is that we are experiencing our interpretations of what's there. So we have certain cognitive processes that allow us to interpret certain input. And for instance, vision, we have the interaction of whatever's there with our visual mechanisms that interpret and communicate somehow with our brain. I'm not a physiologist. And we have all these mechanisms that are processing information. And we tend to believe that our processing of that information is what's true. So you're probably familiar with the saying, seeing is believing. Good morning, Robin. So good to have you joining us this morning for our discussion of reality and what's real, and do we have any bead on the truth of it? So you picked a good morning to join us. Welcome. And Rosalind says, making peace with stories and beliefs which are ever changing. Well, yes. So that's kind of the point here, is when we recognize that our experience of reality, it's not that we're experiencing something immutable. It's that we are experiencing our interpretations of some kind of input, and that we don't actually know what the nature of that input is. We don't tend to stop to think about this, but if we lose a sense, for instance, or we have a modification of a sense, that can potentially shift our experience of reality. And for instance, let's just talk about with COVID, a lot of people lost a sense of smell and taste. So the question is, did the smell and taste go away in the thing that was originally smelled or tasted? Or does the smell and taste still exist if we can't smell and taste it? I guess we're getting into the question of, if a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there, no creature, no being there to hear it, does it make a sound? And so it's a very interesting thought if we think about the essence of reality being information. So quantum physics tells us that everything is movement. There's tremendous amount of space. There's all probability and possibility about where things might be and how things might occur. If we're not there to interpret it, what's there? And is our interpretation reality? Obviously, we operate as if it is. We operate as if the things that we experience as solid are solid. That we can describe things with some continuity between us. You know, we can say, oh, the sky is blue. And yet when we say the sky is blue, we don't necessarily know that our experience of blue is the same. We might do a lot of different color tests to be looking at what are we agreeing on as far as these colors. But what is happening is that we are mapping those definitions to our internal experience, which we can't really calibrate to the experience of another, not with its perfection. So Rosalind says, truth cannot be divided or diluted. So if our senses are not present and experiencing less, perhaps our reality is perceived. Ding, 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 ding. You win the prize, Rosalind, because what we experience as reality is perceived and interpreted. And the limits of our perception are the limits of the truth of the reality we experience. right? And I'm talking about truth with a capital T or reality with a capital R. These things, I think, my working hypothesis, don't take it as gospel, but my working hypothesis is that these things are things that we really truly don't have access to. We don't know truth with a capital T or reality with a capital R. And because our experience is inextricably linked to our perception, and our perception is, I'm going to say, inextricably linked to our beliefs. So our beliefs shape our perception as well as our physiology. So our physical capacity for perception is also going to shape our experience, right? So some people, oh, this was just perfect timing, Rosalind. Rosalind says, how many senses do our bodies have? More than 6? Question mark. So, by the way, if you all are wanting to be engaged in this conversation, please go to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page or YouTube channel, and you can add comments there, and then I should see the comments and can respond to them. Otherwise, I'm not seeing, if I'm not responding, it's because I don't see your comments. So anyway, there are people who see sound. They call this synesthesia, but people who see sound or who hear color or who see tastes. So when we talk about how many senses do we have, I think that that's a really great question. I've heard that there are a multitude of senses that we have that we don't even perceive, because we are sensing gravity. We sense magnetism. We sense the presence of others. Some people are able to sense the thoughts of others. And when I say sense the thoughts of others, I mean be aware of the thoughts of others. I've known people who could sense an impending earthquake. So there's some kind of geophysical sense that they have that most people don't have, or are not cognizant of. The likelihood is that we have many more senses that are uncultivated, that we haven't brought to conscious awareness or named them, and yet we experience them. We can often sense that there's something amiss with someone at a distance. You know, we can get a cognition or an intuition that someone is having a hard time. That's a sense. So all of this plays into reality and the nature of the universe. And so today, this afternoon, I'm going to be doing a spoon bending workshop with the people in my coaching group. And so I was searching around for some videos to support their presence to the fluidity of our experience of reality, like the fluidity of our concept of reality. Because when we allow ourselves to not know the nature of things, we open ourselves to a greater experience of the nature of things. And when we can recognize that it's our cognition and our constructs that define our experience, then we can have more latitude in reconstructing those concepts and those structures of reality. And in allowing ourselves the flexibility, this is something that we talk about a lot, in allowing ourselves the flexibility of thinking, of belief, of perception, then we have access to greater potential. And I mean, if we can actually bend something, and I'm not talking about bending it just with your mind, there's an interaction with our mind that allows us to then find the fluidity of these things that we consider solid, this metal, that what if the universe, the energy of the universe, is all information? So we're talking about how our perception, our cognition, our conceptualization shapes our experience. This is something we talk about all the time. And so when we create limits, our beliefs are constructs that are creating boundaries, that are creating limits that then define our experience. And what if the universe is all information and our senses are decoding mechanisms or encoding mechanisms, maybe even encoding mechanisms? So we get this information from our surroundings, and then we synthesize that information, we encode it so that it becomes discrete things that we can interact with, for instance. Yeah, so Robin says everyone has different reality beliefs. Exactly. So we think we live in the same reality because we can maybe agree that the sky is blue, or that a particular color is red, or whatever the things are that we agree to, but it doesn't mean that we actually share the same experience of reality. I would venture to say that the likelihood is that we don't. When we share ideas, we're sharing information, and then we're interpreting and synthesizing that information within the context that we each uniquely have. So if we think about, maybe each of us is like a snowflake. You know, we each are unique in our experience and perception. And that when we communicate with others, we're trying to create a bridge. I'll get back to that in a minute. Rosalind says, when delving into something new, there are no past experiences to construct those concepts. Well, I would venture to say that we draw on whatever past experiences we have to try to understand whatever it is that is new. You know, like we try to map whatever's new onto something that's pre-existing. as much as we can to give ourselves a sense of safety or understanding, which is not necessarily the best way to come to an accurate conclusion about something, but that is what we tend to do. And Rosalind continues to say, beliefs or openness require us to deconstruct what we thought was possible, wiping the slate clean. And the question is whether indeed we can wipe that slate clean. I don't know that we can. If we could come to life with beginner's mind, we might have so much greater capacity to create, to generate something positive, but we are so entrenched in what has existed that it's a challenge to find ways to truly create something new. And Robin replied, some may have more, some less. The openness. I agree, Robin, that we don't, in a quest for safety and security, we try to put things in categories. We try to compartmentalize things or contain things with specific ideas or beliefs or perceptions. And then when we identify and define something, then it gives us the opportunity to dispense with that thing. Then we don't have to give it so much more attention because now we know what it is, we can move on to the next thing. The truth is that we don't really know what it is. We've just sort of given it a nice, neat little box so that we can then move on to the next thing. And so I know I was going to tell you a story, and now I've forgotten what it was. In any case, oh well. When we are thinking of reality, I don't know if you've ever had the experience where your framework shifts, like an underlying assumption that you've had just shifts and it changes everything. And in fact, that's kind of the work that I do with people with the core connection work, is to be finding those acupuncture points, those points of foundational belief that when shifted, the change then bubbles out into pretty much everything. So for instance, oh, well, let's see. Robin says, snowflakes, everyone is not on the same level of intelligence and understanding, wisdom, life experience, compassion. No, we're all coming from different places. And it doesn't mean that one place is better than another. It just means that we are different. And we often make the assumption that we're the same. If we're talking about commitment, for instance, in the context of a relationship, we might believe that we both have the same definition of commitment. We might not even think about it. So Robin says, snowflakes was the story you were on. I know, saying that we're all different, as far as like snowflakes are all different. We're all different as well. I lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. So when our perception, when our context shifts, our experience shifts. So if I have trust in a relationship and then somebody violates that trust, somebody does something and challenges my idea of what that trust is, or what trustworthiness is, then it shifts my whole experience of that person, and I perceive their actions in a very different way. So what we're talking about here is that what we perceive and believe to be reality is a construct. That's really the bottom line, that we are interpreting our experience, our sensual, sense-based experiences, and we are also interpreting our context or our structure. We're constructing the world that we perceive. And I think that as we recognize the depth of that construction, that we are receiving information and then we're interpreting that information, when we recognize the depth of the construction, maybe it gives us greater capability to construct things in a more life-supporting way. At least that's my hope. And so Rosalind says, what if Dr. Doolittle was your vet, or that we could communicate with our domesticated pets or wildlife? What if they could explain why they have a change in behavior, or how to age comfortably, or to locate a lost one? Robin says, so true, trust. I can relate to this. So Rosalind, there are people that do have the sense, that are able to communicate with other creatures. There are people that do that. They're animal communicators, and it's remarkable what's available to us when we can allow ourselves to access and tap into other dimensions of information. So this has been really fun this morning. Reality is one of my favorite topics to discuss, and I so appreciate you joining me in this conversation. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network. And until next time, I just am so deeply, deeply grateful for this time we get to share. And until next time. So